Things are heating up behind the scenes in Denver, and we need to talk about something very important. We all know that building a 53-man roster is one of the hardest jobs in the NFL, and man, the Denver Broncos cannot afford to make the wrong decisions this year. I truly want to see the Broncos in the Super Bowl. That is my dream, and why not this season? Some fans believe Sam Ehlinger should become Bo Nix's backup quarterback, while others think Jarrett Stidham still deserves that role. There are also major questions at running back, wide receiver, tight end, and across the defense. Talented players will be released, and one unexpected performance during training camp could change everything. So, I want to know which side you are on. Would you choose Ehlinger or Stidham as QB2? Should Denver keep 4 running backs or use that extra roster spot on a 6th wide receiver? Write your opinion in the comments. And if you have been a Denver Broncos fan for more than 15 years, hit that like button hard. Now, let's talk about the Broncos' projected 53-man roster. Let's begin with the quarterback position, because this is where the Broncos could make one of their most difficult decisions. Bo Nix is clearly the starting quarterback. There is no real debate about that. The question is who will stand behind him as Denver's number 2 quarterback. The competition appears to be between Jarrett Stidham and Sam Ehlinger, and our current projection gives the backup job to Ehlinger. That would be a major decision because Stidham has been in Denver longer and already has strong relationships inside the building. He has worked with quarterbacks coach Davis Webb for a long time, and he was part of this team before Nix arrived. However, the Broncos must decide which quarterback gives them the best chance to keep the offense moving if Nix is unavailable. Ehlinger's style is more similar to Nix's. He can move, run with the football, extend plays, and bring a competitive, aggressive mentality to the position. Stidham is more of a traditional pocket passer. The AFC Championship game also became part of this discussion. Stidham received an incredibly difficult opportunity in a high-pressure game played in terrible weather. It was one of the worst possible situations for a backup quarterback to enter. The result did not go the way Denver wanted, and that performance may now influence how the team evaluates the position. There are financial and personal factors involved as well. Stidham carries a significant salary cap number, and removing a respected player from a close locker room is never as simple as writing his name off a roster projection. If Ehlinger wins the job, the Broncos may have to consider whether Stidham should be traded instead of simply released. Denver also cannot afford to keep 3 quarterbacks. There are too many important battles at other positions, so the expectation is that the Broncos will carry only Nix and 1 backup. Right now, Ehlinger is our choice. At running back, Denver may decide to keep 4 players: J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, Jonah Coleman, and Jaleel McLaughlin. The first 3 appear to be secure. Dobbins, Harvey, and Coleman are expected to lead the position and receive the majority of the opportunities, assuming they remain healthy. The difficult question involves McLaughlin. He has an advantage because Sean Payton and the coaching staff clearly value him, but it may be difficult for him to receive regular offensive snaps behind the top 3 backs. The 4th running back could also be inactive on many game days unless an injury creates an opening. Tyler Batty is another name in the competition. He played more special team snaps, but he did not consistently create major plays in that role or establish himself as a return specialist. That gives McLaughlin a possible advantage, even though the final spot remains far from guaranteed. The Broncos could also ask a veteran to begin the season on the practice squad, something they have done with other players. McLaughlin may prefer an opportunity with another team if Denver cannot offer him a meaningful role. That possibility makes this battle even more complicated. Denver could keep only 3 running backs and use the extra roster spot at wide receiver. That may become one of the defining decisions of training camp, for running backs or 6 receivers. Our projection currently includes 5 wide receivers: Courtland Sutton, Jalen Waddle, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, and Marvin Mims Jr. This group gives the Broncos different skill sets and enough talent to build a dangerous passing attack. Sutton provides an established presence, Waddle brings an exciting new element, and Franklin, Bryant, and Mims give Denver speed, youth, and versatility. The 5-man group looks strong, but several players behind them will make the decision difficult. Lil Jordan Humphrey may be the leading candidate for a 6th spot. He has contributed to the team during the last 2 seasons and has earned the trust of the coaching staff. Michael Bandy is also back on another 1-year contract. He has shown that he can contribute as a receiver when given an opportunity, even if his work as a punt returner has not been the main reason for his value. Hakeem Butler brings intrigue to the competition, while Dane Key made plays during organized team activities and minicamp. Kobe Prentice is another player to watch, especially in the return game during the preseason. Denver has options, and that is good news for the team, but bad news for every receiver fighting behind the projected top 5. For one of those players to force his way onto the roster, his performance may have to be undeniable. It will not be enough to make 1 or 2 good plays. He will need to prove that Denver cannot afford to expose him to waivers or risk losing him before placing him on the practice squad. The tight end position may be even more complicated, and Denver's decisions there could reveal how the offense intends to play in 2026. Evan Engram and Adam Troutman appear to be clear roster locks. Justin Joly is also viewed as a strong favorite to make the team. The real fight is for the next position, with rookie Dan Bentley receiving serious consideration. Bentley could follow a path similar to another late-round player who impressed the team during the offseason and earned a place on the final roster. But he will have to prove himself during training camp and the preseason. Lucas Krull has been with the organization since 2023 and understands the system. Caleb Lohner is entering his second NFL season, but training camp will provide one of the first real opportunities to evaluate how his development translates onto the field. Denver also drafted 2 tight ends in 2026, which adds even more competition to an already crowded room. Nate Adkins may give the Broncos a different type of flexibility. He can operate as a tight end and fullback hybrid while also contributing on special teams. Because Denver did not include a traditional fullback among the projected running backs, Adkins could fill that responsibility without forcing the team to dedicate another roster spot to the position. Adam Prentice could potentially begin the season on the practice squad because of his veteran status. Denver may explain that the move is about roster flexibility rather than performance and then elevate him when needed. That type of arrangement could help the Broncos protect a younger developmental player without completely losing Prentice's role. Keeping 4 true tight ends and Adkins as a hybrid would also suggest a possible change in offensive philosophy. Denver ranked among the league's heavier users of 3 receiver personnel last season and used multiple tight end formations less frequently than many fans might believe. If 5 players with tight end or fullback responsibilities make the roster, the Broncos could increase their use of 2 and 3 tight end formations. That would allow Sean Payton to create heavier looks, help the running game, and give the offense more ways to disguise its intentions. The offensive line appears more stable, but the numbers remain difficult. Denver is projected to keep 9 linemen. The starting 5 have developed strong continuity over several seasons, making this one of the most consistent groups on the team. Behind them, Alex Palchevsky and Frank Crum appear to be leading reserve options. Alex Forsyth has started games at center when Luke Wattenberg was unavailable and has performed well enough to remain part of the discussion. Cage Casey brings another important question. Denver views him as someone who may be able to play both guard and center. He could become a future option behind Ben Powers at left guard, but his ability to work at center may also create direct competition with Forsyth. Forsyth has experience and has already shown that he can step into the lineup. Casey, however, represents a new